All right, welcome in. We've got a 49ers update for you. They've squashed the beef. Yes, Kyle Shanahan has injected some reason into the situation. KMBR took my tweet and they dressed it up with a good picture. Two good photos, actually. Deebo-Pepper on one side, Kyle Shanahan on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and use this as well. Kyle Shanahan said that Deebo-Pepper overreacted a little bit. That quotes around that. Overreacted a little bit to Deebo Samuel challenging Jake Moody to raise his level of play, which led to Samuel shoving Pepper. Shanahan also said, quote unquote, "We've squashed it," end quote, and that there was a general overreaction to the incident. So exactly what we'd been saying here over the past 24 hours. Basically, what happened is that Jake Moody missed his third field goal of the day. The 49ers special teams was especially putrid. Deebo Samuel was frustrated about it. Deebo Samuel's a competitor. He walked up to Jake Moody and told him to lock in. Deebo-Pepper misinterpreted the situation, and he got into Deebo Samuel's face. So Deebo Samuel shoved Deebo-Pepper and went on his not-so-merry way because the 49ers weren't too happy at the time, but they ended up winning the game anyway. Kyle Shanahan expanded on this by saying that I like Deebo-Pepper's intentions on it. I mean, he's got his kickers back, but I think he kind of interpreted wrong what Deebo was doing to him and overreacted a little bit, and Deebo didn't like that and got him out of his face. That's really about where it ended. So this is exactly what we deduced from talking about Deebo Samuel and Deebo-Pepper yesterday. Deebo Samuel said that Pepper tried to get big after he told Jake Moody to lock in. Pepper confirmed that Deebo Samuel was trying to tell Jake Moody to lock in. Hey, at the end of the day, Jake Moody came back out there and made his final kick. And the final kick was the game winner. As I've said for the past 24 hours, this is ultimately going to be judged by outsiders, by how the 49ers special teams unit performs from here on out. They've squashed the beef. People that were acting like this was some kind of huge deal have obviously never played a sport at a high level before. This is football. Tempers are going to run high sometime. Would you have liked Deebo Samuel to not shove Deebo-Pepper? Sure, but Pepper was not seriously injured. I mean, we can all grow up. We can all realize that guys are hitting each other a lot harder out on that actual football field. And I think that was that. The 49ers made sure to squash it on the plane, and they'll move along. Richard Sherman, I thought, had probably the take that we should listen most closely to about this prior to Kyle Shanahan's, obviously. But Richard Sherman has played for the 49ers before. He's played on Super Bowl teams before, and he knows that accountability happens. Guys will go up to other players and say, hey, what the hell was that about if they're not performing? And not everybody's going to be defended. Now, Deebo-Pepper has said in the past, there was a post online from him when he was in the New York Giants about 5 years ago, that if anyone tries to talk to his kicker, that he's going to stand up for them. And I think that's where his reaction came from. And Kyle Shanahan said that I like Deebo-Pepper's intentions there, but he said that there was a misinterpretation from Deebo-Pepper that what Deebo Samuel was doing was just trying to get his teammate to lock in. And so far, the proof is in the pudding. The teammate did lock in. Jake Moody made his final kick, and I think it's time that people stop crying about this. So Kyle Shanahan injects some reason into matters. Now we can go to the 49ers injury report, which is actually a positive one for San Francisco. Renardo Green, their cornerback, who's actually the second highest graded cornerback in the entire NFL as a rookie, 184 snaps in. He's earned that third cornerback spot. And yesterday, he was the second corner with Charvarius Ward unavailable. Renardo Green had to exit with a toe injury. He missed 12 snaps. Rock Ya-Sin did a great job filling in for him. Actually notched the pass defense on the third down that might have saved the game for the 49ers at the goal line. Renardo's day-to-day with his toe injury. So I think there's a very solid chance he plays against the Seattle Seahawks coming up here on November 17th. Meanwhile, George Kittle has some hamstring irritation that also does not sound serious. Kyle Shanahan classified him as day-to-day. Mitch Wishnowsky, the 49ers punter, his back, which was giving him some issues a couple months ago, that flared up. So he's also day-to-day. The 49ers will have to monitor Wishnowsky, do some testing. Wouldn't surprise me if they brought in a punter this week just in case. That could be a practice squad punter that they call up. They did make a practice squad move today by signing Nick McLoud. He was previously with the New York Giants, cornerback who's been good in his NFL career so far this year. The Giants, who are a terrible team, they just lost to the Panthers. They wanted McLeod to take a pay cut. It wasn't that big of a pay cut, but the Giants have obviously punted on this season. He refused to take a pay cut, so they released him. 49ers signed McLeod to the practice squad today. He has 704 career special team snaps. But the way that Shanahan described his usefulness, at least in the short term, was really interesting. Chase Lucas on the 49ers practice squad has a calf injury. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So McLeod is going to fill that Chase Lucas role on the scout team. Chase Lucas is like the Travis Hunter of the 49ers in that he plays on both sides of the football. He's a DB by trade, but he was a receiver back in high school. So he plays scout team receiver, emulating other teams' wideouts during practice. So Chase Lucas is a really valuable member of the 49ers behind the scenes, helps them get ready, gives them all the looks that they need. And he's got a special rivalry with the team's defensive backs because he is one of the defensive backs, but at practice, he plays scout team wide receiver. So he has to go up against his own position room. It's a really unique setup. Well, he's been hurt, and he's still going to be unavailable for at least one more week with the calf injury. So what Nick McLeod is going to be able to do is he's going to be able to fill in for Chase Lucas, who delivers so many of the scout team looks for the 49ers. Just thought that was some interesting intel behind the signing. That's not what Shanahan said about Chase Lucas, by the way. That's what I've gathered just by being in the locker room. It's been fun to learn how the 49ers operate behind the scenes. And Chase Lucas's role is one of the more underappreciated ones at practice on this football team, but he is currently hurt. Bad news for those of you hoping that Dre Greenlaw might be back out at least at practice this week. Kyle Shanahan does not anticipate the 49ers opening Dre Greenlaw's practice window yet this week. Although Dre Greenlaw was sprinting out on the practice field last week. Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt shared that on the Fox broadcast of the 49ers win against Tampa Bay. However, the 49ers will get Chris Conley and Kevin Givens back this week. So that's the kind of news that allows us to open up our 49ers depth chart. Why don't we do that right now? Here you go. So Conley, the ex-wide receiver, had been out with a hamstring injury. He's going to be back, but the 49ers have made a shuffle here. Joan Jennings is now the 49ers ex-wide receiver. So we're going to move Joan Jennings into that X role. We're also going to move Deebo Samuel into the F role. Ricky Pearsall into the F role once occupied by Joan Jennings. We will then move Chris Conley into the backup X role where he started this season. So what's happened here is tremendous for the 49ers because Joan Jennings has effectively filled Brandon Ayuk's shoes. Just wait until I show you this statistic. We look at yards per route run in the NFL. Well, the 49ers have a new wide receiver one, and they have him at a bargain rate. Yards per route run, NFL leaders so far this year. Justin Jefferson, number 1, 2.82. Joan Jennings comes in at number 2 at 2.66. Ahead of George Pickens, Jamar Chase, and Terry McLaurin. There are some damn good receivers on that list. And here's the thing about Joan Jennings. He started this season as the 49ers F wide receiver. There's the X, there's the Z, there's the F, which is otherwise known as the third wide receiver. When Deebo Samuel was hurt against the Los Angeles Rams in week 3, Joan Jennings filled in and delivered nearly 200 receiving yards against LA. It was a historic performance that allowed us to start bringing up Jerry Rice comparisons because of how statistically dominant it was. So new role for Joan Jennings, no problem against LA. Yesterday, he had a new role. He was in that X spot, which was vacated by Brandon Ayuk because he got hurt. He tore his ACL, and Chris Conley also missed the game due to injury. So Jennings had to play the X. No problem. 93 receiving yards. Led the 49ers, 7 catches, and those 93 yards, including the catch and run that put them into position to take the win with Jake Moody. That was a big yak play. Remember, we've been talking about the 49ers struggling with yards after the catch. They were number 32. They were dead last in the whole league, even though it was a situation where they had been number 1 over the past several seasons before then. Well, yesterday, the 49ers had 179 yards after the catch. Joan Jennings had many of those. 2 catches in particular stand out. Then there was the George Kittle yak catch. Obviously, the Ricky Pearsall 46-yard touchdown had plenty of yak. But I think that it was Jennings who symbolically led that charge into the 49ers win with the yak that he delivered. And when we look at the 49ers receiving depth chart now, given the latest injury news, Jennings has ascertained his position as the 49ers' top X wide receiver. Conley can slide back into his depth role. Deebo Samuel's obviously the top Z wide receiver for San Francisco. And Ricky Pearsall has emerged as the new F. So Pearsall has taken Jennings' original spot. Jennings has taken Ayuk's original spot. And Deebo Samuel is still the bulldozer that he's always been for the 49ers. Moving forward, we can start to talk about where will Jacob Cowing make his first bigger splash. I know he's made a couple of nice catches for the 49ers so far this season. Had only 3 snaps yesterday, though, and I think that they're still waiting for Jacob Cowing to really, really make an impact on this offense. You know that the jet sweep that they ran against the Cowboys was supposed to go to Jacob Cowing, but there was a misalignment on the play. I don't know if it was Cowing who went to the wrong side of the formation or Pearsall, but they were flip-flopped. So based on the flip-flopping, it was actually supposed to go to Chris Conley on the right side because that's where Cowing was supposed to line up. But Conley's a veteran, and Chris Conley told Ricky Pearsall, you better take this one. I'm an old guy. The youngster needs to take the jet sweep. So improvisation on the fly. The jet sweep went to Ricky Pearsall, and he gained, 33 yards on the play without having repped the play a single time. I talked to Pearsall in the locker room about that, and that's a nerve-wracking kind of situation because you're coming full speed from your wide receiver spot behind the offensive line. If that is 1/10 of a second off, 2/10 of a second off, that's a fumble. That's an embarrassing, or at the very least, it's an embarrassing play where you trip over your quarterback and everyone eats it in the backfield. So you've got to get that exactly right timing-wise as you sprint across the formation. The center has to get it right, too. The quarterback has to get the handoff in the right spot. Because if you're not coming full speed, if you slow up just to make sure the exchange is clean, then the defense is going to corral you in the backfield. That play is dependent on full speed motion, snap, handoff. The choreography has to be on point. Ricky Pearsall had not repped that play a single time with Brock Purdy until they ran it on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys, and it went off for a 33-yard gain. So it just goes to show you how good these guys are at the small things, that they can do something like that under the bright lights, 11 on 11 without any practice. And it worked that time for the 49ers. I think it's really, really helpful for San Francisco that they cross-train all of these wide receiver positions. So the F has to know everything playbook-wise that the X does. The Z has to know everything that the F and the X does on the field. Like that's built into how the 49ers demand their players to study the playbook. And I think that's really helped them this season with Brandon Ayuk going down. And that wasn't the only injury, right? When Deebo Samuel went down in week 3, we saw Jennings go off for 178 yards. The cross-training really helped. I asked Joan about that in the locker room yesterday because I knew it was his first time playing at the X spot. And he said that his first credit was to Shanahan. He says that Kyle has prepared me and made it as easy as possible for me to make that transition. And we talk about this a lot. It's like these interchangeable pieces, right? These positionless skill positions. And a lot of times there's this interplay between running back and wide receiver. I know Deebo Samuel does it with the wide back position, but you've got guys from the outside lining up in the backfield and guys in the backfield lining up out wide. That's the first step toward full cross training from position to position, but it's happening especially intricately within the wide receiver room itself. And I think that's really, really important to highlight because the 49ers had a very efficient day yesterday. I mean, I've got another graphic for you. This is from SF Data 49ers, who was able to provide us with his 49ers receiving summary. Take a look at this. On the right side, you have EPA per target. It is exceedingly rare to have all 5 eligible targets be in the positive for a game, especially this far into a positive. Keep in mind that Brock Purdy was 0.49 EPA per snap, which is insanely good. That was over the whole game. Lamar Jackson is leading the league right now in EPA per snap at 0.31. So every single one of the 49ers targets yesterday averaged more efficiency throughout the game than Lamar Jackson is averaging to lead the NFL this season with his dropbacks, to put it in that kind of context. Jennings was at 0.36. You're adding a third of a point every single time that you throw it to Joan Jennings. That's what this means. Ricky Pearsall, 0.39. Christian McCaffrey, you're adding 2/3 of a point, an expected point, every single time that you throw to Christian McCaffrey, which is just sensational for a running back. Deebo Samuel, 0.65. And then George Kittle's the godfather here, 1.46. So they didn't throw to George Kittle very often. I get it. The sample size is a little smaller, but you're adding 1.5 points every single time you're targeting George Kittle. That is wild efficiency. That's a credit to Brock Purdy. That's a credit to George Kittle. It's a credit to Kyle Shanahan. It's a credit to Christian McCaffrey, who on the George Kittle touchdown, and I know that I wrote about this on the San Francisco Standard, but on the George Kittle touchdown, the 49ers anticipated throwing to Christian. But George knew that his role was going to grow on that play when Christian ended up covered anyway. So Christian McCaffrey drew some defensive attention to himself in the middle of the field. And then George Kittle had to get open against the safety in the back corner. And it was all Purdy and Kittle from that point on. Off-schedule throw. And, you know, people aren't even talking about the fact that Vita Vea, who weighs 350 pounds, I think this is the heaviest player in the NFL, Vita Vea at 350. He was about to drill Brock Purdy. I mean, Vita Vea out of Milpitas, by the way. Shout out to the East. What is Milpitas, East Bay or South Bay, first of all? I mean, I get the probably a little bit of a debate here. I'm sure somebody from Milpitas is watching, so you can let me know. And Milpitas got to be South Bay, right? At that point, you're already in the South Bay. I think Fremont is still East Bay, but once you get from Fremont down to Milpitas, that has to be South Bay, right? Anyway, Vita Vea is from Milpitas, so shout out to them. But he, at 350 pounds, is probably the scariest person in the NFL to be chased by. And Brock Purdy was moving away from the original pocket. Vita Vea was bearing down on him, and that's when he dropped that absolute dime to George Kittle. By the way, our 49ers grades are out. John, my grade editor, just sent this to me, so we're going to pop the grades open on the screen right now. Here they are. And here is the headline. Consider that ugly sideline incident squashed. That's what Kyle Shanahan said. And well, what a nice picture of Brock Purdy. I'm going to toss this over to Mike, who's hopefully going to toss this into the description so you can go ahead and check out the article on the San Francisco Standard. That is a great picture. That's one of I don't know if that's one of Purdy's scrambles, like for actual yardage, or if that's him scrambling behind the line of scrimmage to throw for yardage, because he did a little bit of both in this game yesterday. But I can go through some of the grades as well for the 49ers if you'd like to do that. Then maybe we go through some questions. I also have to make sure that I've delivered every single bit of news that I was intending to deliver to you before this show started. Yeah, we went through the injury report. That's good. We went through the Tabor overreaction. That's good. Oh, we got some tape to play today. We talk about guys caring, and I think that Deebo Samuel cares. I would say Pepper cares too. I mean, he obviously was getting very vocal about things on the sideline. But, I mean, Deebo Samuel, to go up to Jake Moody, he showed the frustration that the entire fan, I think, had with the 49ers special teams losing that many points. Spoiler alert, I gave the 49ers special teams an F in my grades. You can go through all of the grades here. This is why you should go check them out, because it is very, very thorough. Here's my grade for the special teams unit. F. That was not going to be redeemed by a game-winning kick from Jake Moody. It was not going to be redeemed by the punt return for 31 yards for Jacob Cowing. That was an F performance, and I graded it accordingly for the 49ers. So hope that makes you guys happy. I know that a lot of people call for very low grades in situations like that one. So I did my job. I gave him an F, but I also gave Brock Purdy an A. Essentially, the entire offense got an A. That was a really, really good performance. We can go down and we could look at some of what Purdy did. He was 86% against the blitz in this game. 86%. The completion percentage above expectation against the blitz was plus 14.3. He threw for 200 yards against the blitz on 14 attempts. So a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how the 49ers and Shanahan were struggling with their blitz beaters, right? Sometimes when too much pressure comes for your blockers to pick up, it's up to the quarterback to find the vacated spot of the field and to actually throw against the pressure, into the teeth of the pressure. So the quarterback is the one that's beating the blitz. And I think especially against the Chiefs, this was a struggle at some crucial junctures. I will go out and say that we need to keep this in perspective. Even after the game against the Chiefs, where the 49ers struggled against Steve Spagnuolo at a couple spots, they were still number 5 in the entire NFL in EPA per play against the blitz. So it's not like it was this glaring issue that, the 49ers were ranked in the bottom half of the league. They just failed at a couple exotic spots against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they needed to turn that around. They needed to make sure that at critical junctures, people couldn't zero blitz them and leave San Francisco completely handcuffed. This is where that stupid audible discussion came into play, where people, this was patently ridiculous. I shut it down. We talked about it so many times. People were saying that Brock Purdy doesn't have the ability to audible at the line of scrimmage, even though he clearly has the ability to check into different plays. It was just another admission that people don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the 49ers process. I get it. There's going to be a lot of that online. There's going to be a lot of that in the media, but it did crystallize the issue that the 49ers were playing or were facing after playing the Chiefs. And that was one of beating blitzes with built-in answers. And the answers that Brock Purdy had access to, and then the answers that he executed with some insanely good throws against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, those answers and his delivery of them were encapsulated by the insane numbers that we saw from Brock Purdy, which I logged here in the 49ers report card. 14.3 EPA or yards per attempt against the blitz is an absurdly good number. And that's what Brock Purdy was able to deliver for the 49ers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got more. We've got the Joan Jennings, 2.66 yards per route run. I included the table that I just showed you for the receivers. Pressures allowed against Tampa Bay: Williams 3, Brendel 3, McKivitz 2, Pooney 2, Aaron Banks 1. I thought it was a solid day for the 49ers pass protection. I don't think it was great, but I think it was solid enough to get the job done. Obviously, Brock Purdy has worked with much worse before. They've improved the pass protection significantly over last year. Listen, it has the potential to be a great offense. We saw him put it up over 400 yards again yesterday. We saw Purdy do what he did with the throw to Christian McCaffrey, with the superstar throw to George Kittle. We've seen even more than that from Brock Purdy, but San Francisco still needs to deliver better at the most crucial junctures, especially in the red zone. And this is a clip that Johnny Dell's Football Academy prepared, and I have it here for you right now. Mike was able to grab it for me. You will see an example of a bad play from the 49ers and an example of something that the 49ers must turn around so they can take the next step from good to great offensively. Take a look at this. This is on Isaac Guerendo. And you could see how upset Trent Williams is on the right side of your screen. So Isaac Guerendo, when he sees this blitzing action on the right side from number 8, he can't split off into a pass pattern. He's got to pick that up. He just tries to chip the pass rusher. That's not good enough. There's the chip. Now it's going to be a free rusher. There's Brock Purdy going down. There's Trent Williams pissed in the bottom right. Watch this one more time. Bottom right, Trent Williams. He cares. He is extremely upset. This answers the question as to why Kyle Shanahan doesn't like to take Christian McCaffrey off the field. Isaac Guerendo's been doing a lot of good stuff for the 49ers, but McCaffrey is still by far the most trusted agent when it comes to pass protection out of the running back position. And so many times people will see a pressure like that and they'll say, what's the 49ers offensive line doing? Well, the offensive line did bust the coverage a little bit later in the game when Brock Purdy made that insane throw to Christian McCaffrey, but they didn't bust that coverage, that pass protection. That was on Isaac Guerendo. And that's an example of a play which I think came in the red zone that the 49ers have to get right, because if you don't get a play like that right, you're going to be leaving points on the table relative to the big yardage production that you have. So in the honor of consistency here, Johnny Dell also put this up in slow motion. Go ahead and follow his page, by the way. He's got great film insight. Johnny Dell's Football Academy. This was the play of the game. This is what I wrote about on the San Francisco Standard. This was the busted coverage or pass protection. I really don't know if this was Trent Williams' fault or some kind of miscommunication between him and Kittle. But as you can see, William Golston, who's another scary defensive tackle, is running in with a free shot to Brock Purdy. And Purdy fading away, throwing early, delivers. This is an MVP caliber throw from Brock Purdy. I mean, if there were more cloud cover in Tampa Bay, this one would have brought down rain. Back foot throw, Golston hitting him early. Purdy somehow putting it up there in a spot where only Christian McCaffrey could get it for a big 30-plus yard gain. When Purdy threw this pass right now, you could see Levante David's leg on the right side over there in the upper right. Levante David is still in front of Christian McCaffrey. Like, McCaffrey has not passed Levante David at this point. So the throw is leaving Purdy's arm, set to lead Christian McCaffrey on a rainbow arc before McCaffrey passes Levante David. That is insane cohesion, insane chemistry, and an example of Brock Purdy overcoming an issue in pass protection, which happened when William Golston busted through the front of the line. That's an MVP quarterback right there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Brock Purdy has been playing at that type of level for the 49ers, and yesterday was another great example of him delivering at that level for San Francisco. You know what? Pass rush was also good for the 49ers yesterday. Look at the average distance away from the QB. Malik Collins, Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, all closer to the quarterback than the league average on average. 4.15 yards for Collins, 4.23 for Bosa, 4.38 for Floyd. This is something I think we got to get straight. Floyd has been an above-average pass rusher this year. He's above average in pass rush productivity. People acting like Leonard Floyd is disappointing. He's doing exactly what the 49ers thought he was going to do. Yesterday, Malik Collins' sack, that was precipitated by Leonard Floyd coming in from the edge, forcing Baker Mayfield up into the pocket. It was a good pass rush from Leonard Floyd. Then you had Malik Collins deliver that sack. He's got 4 of them this year. His career high is 5, and we just passed the halfway mark of the season. Malik Collins still ranks in the top 5 of pass rushing productivity amongst defensive tackles. So the 49ers have a solid pass rush. They've got really good coverage. We talked about Renardo Green. How about Jair Brown yesterday? The pass breakup on Cade Otton was really, really important because Otton was the Bucs' leading receiver. And Jair Brown was assigned to cover him after Mayfield only looked at Otton for a stretch of the first half. Broke up 2 passes, headed toward Cade Otton, and Tampa Bay didn't go back to that well. San Francisco is working with some good stuff defensively. They're already ranked in the top half of the league defensively. I think I looked up the EPA today. They were number 12. I think they need to bump that up to the top 10. I think they're well on their way to doing that, especially if the offense gives more help and the special teams obviously needs to give more help for the 49ers. But if they can do that, and if the offense can replicate what it did against Tampa Bay, but actually see some help from its special teams. I mean, that was a 30-point performance with made field goals. You do those two things, 49ers offensively and defensively are very much on the right track. I think the proof is in the pudding when I show all these statistics to you. I'm going to open this up for a few minutes, the 49ers Q&A, and then I've got to run because it's almost 5 o'clock Pacific time, which means that Monday Night Football is coming up. So let's open it up. I know we got a lot of people asking questions. If you're on Twitter, you could head to the YouTube page. That is where I will answer your questions. And if you're elsewhere, then like the podcast, you can always go to either X or to YouTube. Khil Davis played 5 snaps yesterday, so it wasn't a big role for him. I would expect him to become more and more integrated with what the 49ers are doing along the defensive line as time passes, just because that was his first game. He had been with the team for a little less than a week. They traded from Tuesday. He had to be in the building by Wednesday, so he got 3 practices in, but that's going to take a little bit longer. They're probably going to get Kevin Givens back this week too, which is going to be a nice boost. You're just trying to fortify that defensive line with as much depth as possible. By the way, if you want to check out that 49ers grades piece, Mike has put it into the description. So please go ahead and do that. That's all up on the San Francisco Standard right now. Michael Lieberman has it right. Floyd is not getting enough credit for the 49ers. Mason got very limited action. Is it because of his shoulder injury? That could be. He wasn't listed anymore, and Shanahan didn't list him today. But let's be honest, Christian McCaffrey is a Hall of Fame player. That was a close game. You need Christian McCaffrey in the game as much as you possibly can have him in there. And he came out of the game fine. They did manage Christian McCaffrey's touches, by the way. He had 13 carries and 7 targets, so they try to keep it around 20 touches. There's no reason to force Jordan Mason into the game beyond that. There's no reason to force Isaac Guerendo into the game beyond that. So I think the answer is simple as that. Christian McCaffrey is a lot better than Jordan Mason or Isaac Guerendo. This is a really interesting question. Is it possible that the 49ers drafted too many good starters so that the special teams depth is suffering? Instead of having good young rookies cutting their teeth on special teams like Talanoa Hufanga back in 2021, Hufanga was really good. He picked up the block punt in Green Bay. It wasn't him blocking it, but he picked it up. The 49ers might have guys that are focusing on actual roles on offense and defense. I mean, this is a question that I'll pursue. Absolutely. I don't think that this is a stupid question. Because if you look at the draft class, the performance has been insane. Ricky Pearsall, here he is as already the 49ers' 3rd wide receiver. I mean, that was quick. We're at week 11, and Ricky Pearsall's already playing Joan Jennings' old F receiver position. Okay, that's really nice. Renardo Green is the 2nd highest rated quarterback or graded quarterback by PFF in all football. He's earned a spot as the 49ers' number 3 corner. So that's a de facto starter when they're in the nickel package. Somebody like Isaac Guerendo was playing a lot more before Christian McCaffrey came along, but he's already delivering. Malik Mustafa is a starting safety for San Francisco. Dominic Pooney is the number 8 rated guard in all of football when it comes to run block grade. I mean, I know Pooney wouldn't have been a big-time special teams contributor. I mean, he'd be a line player for special teams, but still, you go through this rookie class, and normally you take your rookies and you take some of your depth players, and they're your big-time special teams contributors. But you are correct in that the 49ers rookies this year have been big-time performers on both offense and defense. And it is fair to speculate, do those players, because of their elevations to offense and defense, has that taken some focus away from what's happening on special teams? I would counter, as I think about a good answer to your question, that somebody like Darrell Luter Jr., who I think is primarily at fault for the issues yesterday because of the muffed punt, he was the one that got backed into Jacob Cowing. Somebody like Darrell Luter Jr. is not playing a whole lot on defense, so he absolutely does not have the excuse of being a guy that's in a defensive rotation like a Renardo Green. So no on that front. But I think in general, special teams, like, it's one of those phases of the game where the snaps are in such short supply, like the sample size is never all that big, that it is very impacted when you have domino effect of injuries or players who are otherwise unavailable having to fill in. You have players having to fill in gaps, and that makes the unit's performance obviously suffer. I talked about this a little bit earlier today, and we can go week by week special teams performance. Look at where the 49ers suffered tremendously in the past. Red is bad, green is good. 2020 was the year where they had a lot of dark red, and it got worse as the season progressed. 2024, yes, there's a lot of dark red here. I don't know if there's been too much rhyme or reason behind where the dark red has been. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are the number one special teams unit in football, and the 49ers were in the green there. They had a really good game. But in 2020, it started okay, and then it got worse and worse and worse, and there was just a ton of red late in the season. And that was the season from injury hell for the 49ers, 2020. So what happens is that you start losing guys on offense and defense, so you're bumping guys up, and then you're having to bring in new guys to fill in on the special teams depth, and that makes the unit as a whole suffer. I think that happened in 2020. I think they had a lot of injury issues in 2021, so that was a problem as well. And you can talk about maybe other reasons impacting the 49ers special teams depth this year. It is an interesting theory that's been brought up, and I think it's just not easy to put your finger on one specific thing that has caused the lapse for the 49ers. Yesterday, we can draw the line fairly clearly to Jake Moody's 3 missed kicks and the muffed punt, but it's been different issues in different games for the 49ers. No, Charvarius Ward, I don't think will be done for the season, but he's indefinitely out. There's a question about him. He's indefinitely out right now as he tends to the personal issue, the tragedy in his family with the death of his 1-year-old daughter, Amani Joy. I think Kenny Hamilton sums the situation up well with this comment. Where does the hyena, Deommodore Lenoir, that's his self-given nickname, rank him on cornerbacks? Seems like he is having a fabulous season. He is. Deommodore Lenoir is amongst the top 5 cornerbacks in terms of passer rating allowed. He's allowed a rating of under 65 into his coverage this year. So he's playing like a cornerback 1. Charvarius Ward was really turning it up before he missed this past game. So he's playing really well. And Renardo Green is the second highest graded cornerback in all of football. This is the deepest secondary that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have fielded in their time with the 49ers. We are only 5 subscribers away from 80,000. So everybody, you can go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That's exciting. I didn't even know that. So thank you, Mike. If you hit that sub button, we'll be good. We are only 5 real subscribers from 80,000. We don't buy fake subscribers here. So we're 5 real subscribers from 80,000. That's good to know. Thanks for clarifying, Mike. I really appreciate it. Will we see Dre Greenlaw this week? No, we will not see Dre Greenlaw this week. Kyle Shanahan said that the practice window probably will not open. However, he said that at this point it would start to turn into a week-by-week evaluation. So I don't think he's all that far off at all, but just be patient. You know what's interesting is that Devondre Campbell has played his 2 best games as a 49er over the past 2 weeks. Shanahan even said so today. I think it's been clear. Campbell was a thumper out there for the 49ers yesterday. So they're not in a rush for Dre Greenlaw to come back. Campbell has acclimated, and I think that once Greenlaw comes back, he could start as the 3rd linebacker to get reacclimated into the system. And then when he's ready to go, he could bump up to 2, and Campbell could be your 3. 49ers are not in a bad spot at that linebacker position. Did we already hit 80,000? Mike says that we're now 1 real subscriber away from 80,000. We have officially hit 80,000 real subscribers. We didn't have to fake our way to get there. We didn't have to buy subscribers very fraudulently. Good stuff. Awesome. Thanks, Mike. That's a big milestone. I really appreciate everybody who's joined us for the ride over the course of the past, what has it been, 2 years, 3 years? Time is flying. It's been a good time. I think it's a good way to finish the show, too. That's been your 49ers update. Back to the news. Those of you just joining, I could recap really quickly what happened for the 49ers. Shanahan injected some reason into matters. He went out and he said that Deebo-Pepper overreacted to Deebo Samuel simply trying to get Jake Moody to lock in. That's what Deebo Samuel told Jake Moody. That led Deebo Samuel to shove Deebo-Pepper, but the 49ers have, quote-unquote, squashed the beef. A good injury report for the 49ers means that Chris Conley and Kevin Givens will be returning to practice and to the roster or to active participation this week. Renardo Green has a toe injury. He's day-to-day. George Kittle has hamstring irritation. He's also day-to-day. Mitch Wishnowski's back flared up. He's also day-to-day. That's the 49ers update for you on this Monday evening. Everybody enjoy Monday Night Football. You get to see the Seattle Seahawks, 49ers division rivals, who they play this coming week. No, sorry, not the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are on a bye. You get to see the Rams, the 49ers division rival, play against the Miami Dolphins. The 49ers had the benefit of playing Tampa Bay coming off a bye. Now the 49ers go back to having to play a team that is unfortunately rested, and the 49ers won't be. But that's just the way that the schedule works out for the 49ers in this 2024 season. All right, everybody, thanks for your support. We will see you soon, and make sure you do check out the Grading the 49ers article, which is up on the San Francisco Standard. I'll toss that up there one more time because it is a really good picture of Brock Purdy up on the Standard. Consider the ugly sideline incident squashed, and go ahead and check out 49ers grades in that description. We'll talk to you soon.